Jake Morrison sat in the metal pod as it fell through space toward the red planet below. His hands were steady on his rifle, but his heart beat fast in his chest. He was the only one left from what was supposed to be a team of 50 soldiers. The others had died when alien ships attacked their transport vessel 3 days ago. Now it was just him against an entire world full of enemies who wanted to kill every human in the galaxy. The mission was simple to say, but hard to do. He had to get to the big communication tower in the center of the alien city and blow it up. If he could destroy that tower, the aliens could not call for help from their home world. Earth would be safe for a while longer. The problem was that 40 million alien warriors lived on this planet, and they all wanted him dead. Jake checked his gear one more time as the pod shook around him. He had his marine armor that could stop most alien weapons. He had enough bullets to kill maybe 1,000 enemies if he was very lucky and very good. He had a small nuclear bomb with a switch that would go off if he died. Most important, he had 48 hours of air to breathe. After that he would die anyway, so he had to work fast. The aliens were called Vorthak, and they looked like giant bugs with sharp claws and mean attitudes. They had already destroyed 12 human colonies and killed millions of people. Their ships were bigger and stronger than human ships. Their weapons could melt steel in seconds. They seemed to win every battle against human forces. But they had never fought against one angry Marine who had nothing left to lose. Jake had studied these aliens for months during the long trip to their world. He knew how they thought and how they fought. They liked to attack in big groups with lots of noise and bright lights. They were very strong, but not very smart about fighting one person who could hide and move fast. They had never learned how humans could fight when they were desperate. The pod started to glow red hot as it hit the thick air around the planet. Jake could see the alien city getting bigger through the small window. It was huge with tall towers that reached up into the sky and millions of buildings spread out like a metal forest. Somewhere in the middle of all that was his target, somewhere in there were 40 million aliens who would try to stop him. Jake thought about his sister Amy. Back on Earth, she was only 16 and worked in the food gardens that fed their city. If the aliens reached Earth, she would die along with everyone else. His parents were already dead from the last alien attack on their space station. Amy was all the family he had left, and he would not let the aliens hurt her. The pod hit the ground hard, and Jake felt his teeth rattle in his head. Red dust flew up all around as the metal shell cracked open. He grabbed his gear and rolled out into the alien world. The sky was orange, and the sun looked smaller than Earth's sun. The air smelled like metal and something rotten. In the distance, he could see the alien city with its tall walls and bright lights. Jake activated his stealth system and became almost invisible to alien sensors. The technology was new and had never been tested in real combat. It might work for a few hours, or it might fail at any moment. He could not count on it to keep him alive. He would have to be smarter and faster than 40 million enemies. The first alien patrol found his crashed pod within 10 minutes. 6 large Vorthak soldiers came walking across the red ground with their energy weapons ready. They moved in a straight line like they expected to find a dead human in the wreckage. They did not look around for other threats. They did not check the rocky hills where Jake was hiding. They just walked right into his trap. Jake waited until they were close enough to smell their strange alien scent. Then he opened fire with his rifle set to full automatic. The bullets were special armor-piercing rounds that could punch through alien shields. The first 3 Vorthak fell before they knew what hit them. The other 3 tried to run, but Jake was faster. In 30 seconds, all 6 aliens were dead, and Jake was already moving toward the city. Behind him, alarms started making loud noises as more aliens found the dead patrol. Soon, every Vorthak on the planet would know that a human had landed in their territory. They would send thousands of soldiers to hunt him down. They would use every weapon they had to kill him. Jake smiled as he ran toward the alien city. Let them come. He was ready to show them what one human could do when he had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The alien city was bigger than Jake had imagined from the pictures in his mission briefing. Walls rose up like mountains made of black metal, and strange purple lights blinked along the surface. Guard towers stood every few hundred meters with alien soldiers watching the desert around their home. Jake could see hundreds of flying vehicles moving between the tall buildings inside the walls. This was going to be the hardest fight of his life. Jake moved from rock to rock across the red desert ground. His stealth system was still working, but he could feel it getting weaker as the alien scanners tried to find him. Every few minutes, he had to stop and hide while patrol ships flew overhead looking for the human who had killed their soldiers. The aliens were getting angry, and that would make them sloppy. Angry enemies made mistakes, and Jake needed them to make lots of mistakes. The outer wall of the city had sensors that could detect a mouse from a mile away, but they were designed to spot big groups of attacking soldiers or ships. Jake was just one person moving very slowly and staying close to the ground. He found a drainage pipe that went under the wall and crawled through dirty water that smelled worse than anything he had ever experienced. The aliens had not thought to guard their sewers very well. Inside the city, Jake saw his first group of alien civilians. They looked like the soldiers, but smaller and without weapons. Some had young ones following them around on 6 legs instead of 4. Jake felt strange watching alien families going about their normal lives while he planned to destroy their world. But then he remembered the human families these same aliens had murdered, and his heart went cold again. Jake needed to learn the layout of the city before he could attack the main target. He climbed up the side of a tall building using claws built into his armor gloves. From the roof he could see the central tower where the communication equipment was hidden. It was at least 20 miles away through narrow streets full of alien soldiers. Getting there would take all night, and he would have to fight every step of the way. The first real battle started when Jake decided to test alien response times. He threw a small explosive device into a military supply building and watched from across the street as it blew up in bright yellow flames. Within 2 minutes, 50 alien soldiers arrived with heavy weapons and flying vehicles. They surrounded the burning building and searched every corner for enemies. But Jake was already gone to hit another target 3 blocks away. The second explosion got their attention in a big way. This time, Jake destroyed a communication relay that connected the outer city defenses to the central command. Alien officers started shouting orders in their clicking language, and more soldiers poured into the streets. They were beginning to understand that something was very wrong in their safe city. Jake used the confusion to move closer to the center of town. He stayed in the shadows between buildings and avoided the main roads where alien patrols were now marching with weapons ready. Every few blocks he would plant another small bomb or shoot out important-looking equipment. The aliens were starting to panic because they could not find their enemy, and the attacks kept getting worse. By midnight, Jake had destroyed 6 military targets and killed 23 alien soldiers in quick hit and run attacks. The alien commanders were sending their troops in all directions trying to catch him, but Jake was always one step ahead. He had studied human guerrilla warfare tactics for years, and now he was using everything he had learned against an enemy that had never faced this kind of fighting. The aliens were used to big battles with lots of ships and thousands of soldiers on each side. They knew how to fight other aliens who followed the same rules of war that they did. But Jake did not follow any rules except one: win at any cost. He hit targets they did not expect him to attack. He moved through parts of the city they thought were safe. He killed their soldiers and disappeared before they could fight back. Jake found a good hiding place in an abandoned building that smelled like alien food. He ate some of his emergency rations and checked his equipment. The stealth system was down to half power and would not last much longer. His rifle had plenty of bullets left, but he was already running low on explosives. Most importantly, he was getting tired, and tired soldiers made deadly mistakes outside his hiding place. Jake could hear alien voices getting louder and more excited. They were bringing in more troops from other parts of the planet to hunt for him. Soon there would be thousands of enemies between him and his target. The easy part of the mission was over. Now came the real test. Jake looked at a picture of his sister Amy that he kept in his helmet. She was smiling and holding a flower from the Earth Gardens. She had no idea that her big brother was sitting in an alien city surrounded by 40 million Enemies who wanted to kill him. She was probably sleeping safely in her bed right now, trusting that someone would protect her from the monsters in space. Jake put the picture away and picked up his rifle. Amy was counting on him even if she did not know it. All of humanity was counting on him. One human against a planet full of aliens sounded impossible, but Jake had already proven that impossible just meant it would take a little longer. He was going to reach that communication tower and blow it up, even if he had to kill every alien on the planet to do it. Jake woke up before dawn in his hiding place and knew that something had changed during the night. The sounds outside were different now. Instead of random patrols searching the streets, he could hear organized military movements. The aliens had brought in their best soldiers, and they were getting ready for a real hunt. General Zektar was the alien commander in charge of the city defenses, and Jake had read his military record during the trip to this planet. Zektar had won battles against human forces on 6 different worlds. He was smart and dangerous, and he did not like losing soldiers to a single human enemy. Now, Zektar was taking personal control of the hunt, and that would make Jake's job much harder. Jake packed his gear and moved to a new hiding spot before the aliens could surround his building. Through his scope, he watched alien soldiers setting up checkpoints on every street corner. They had flying vehicles patrolling overhead with sensors that could detect body heat. Teams of soldiers with tracking animals were moving through the city following scent trails. The aliens were using every trick they knew to find one human, but Jake had advantages that the aliens did not understand. Human soldiers had been fighting guerrilla wars for thousands of years. They had learned how to hide from superior enemies and strike when least expected. Jake knew how to move without making noise. He knew how to hide his heat signature from sensors. Most important, he knew how to think like his enemy and stay one step ahead. The first major battle happened when Jake tried to cross a main road to reach a better position. 20 alien soldiers were guarding the intersection with heavy weapons and scan equipment. Jake could have gone around, but that would take hours, and he needed to keep moving toward his target. Instead, he decided to go right through them. Jake waited until a large flying vehicle passed overhead, blocking their view from above. Then he threw smoke grenades into the intersection and ran straight at the enemy soldiers while they were confused. His rifle fired automatically, and 3 aliens fell before they could react. The others started shooting in all directions but could not see Jake through the thick smoke. By the time the air cleared, Jake was already climbing up the side of a building 2 blocks away. The aliens were learning that their enemy could do things they had never seen before. Human soldiers could think and adapt faster than alien minds could follow. When the aliens set a trap, Jake would find a way around it or turn it against them. When they tried to predict where he would go next, he would do something completely unexpected. Jake spent the morning destroying smaller targets while he worked his way toward the city center. He blew up power stations that supplied electricity to alien defense systems. He destroyed water pumping stations that kept the city running. He attacked weapons storage buildings and caused huge explosions that could be seen from miles away. Each attack made the aliens more angry and more desperate to catch him. By noon, Jake had killed over 100 alien soldiers and caused massive damage to city infrastructure. The aliens were pulling troops from the outer defenses to search for him. They were closing factories and telling civilians to stay inside their homes. The entire city was starting to shut down because of one human with a rifle and some explosives. Jake found a good observation post on top of a tall building and used his scope to study the central tower where his target was hidden. The aliens had tripled the guard around the building. Energy shields covered every entrance. Flying vehicles circled the area like angry wasps. Getting inside would require more than just fighting skills. It would take a miracle. But as Jake watched the alien defenses, he began to see patterns in their movements. The guards changed shifts every 4 hours. The flying patrols followed the same routes. The energy shields had to be lowered briefly when supply vehicles entered the building. The aliens were very good at following orders, but they were not very good at changing their plans when something unexpected happened. Jake also noticed something else that gave him hope. The aliens were starting to make mistakes because they were scared. Guards left their posts to help search for him. Officers argued about the best way to catch one human enemy. Some soldiers refused to patrol alone and demanded backup for simple missions. Fear was spreading through the alien ranks like a disease. Jake smiled as he watched alien soldiers jumping at shadows and shooting at noises in empty buildings. They had never fought an enemy who could be anywhere and strike at any time. They were used to battles where both sides followed predictable rules. But Jake was not following any rules except survival, and the aliens did not know how to deal with that. As afternoon turned to evening, Jake prepared for the most dangerous part of his mission. He had to get close enough to the central tower to plant his nuclear bomb. That meant fighting through hundreds of the best alien soldiers while staying alive long enough to complete his task. The odds were terrible, but Jake had been facing terrible odds since he landed on this planet. Jake checked his weapons one more time and counted his remaining ammunition. He had enough bullets for maybe 2 more big fights. His explosives were almost gone. The nuclear bomb was ready to use, but he would have to get very close to the target before setting it off. Once he started the final attack, there would be no turning back. Jake thought about his sister Amy one more time before beginning his assault. She was depending on him to stop these aliens from reaching Earth. Millions of other humans were also depending on him, even though they did not know his name. Jake was just one Marine against 40 million enemies, but sometimes one person could change everything if they were willing to pay the price. Jake realized that bullets and explosives alone would not be enough to win this fight. He needed to get inside the heads of his enemies and make them afraid to fight him. The aliens were strong and numerous, but they had one big weakness that Jake could use against them. They had never learned to deal with psychological warfare. The Vorthok aliens were a hive mind species that shared thoughts and emotions with each other. When one alien felt fear, that fear spread to others nearby. When soldiers started to panic, their panic infected entire units. Jake had read about this in the intelligence reports, but now he was going to use it as a weapon more powerful than any bomb. Jake began leaving messages at the sites of his attacks. He learned some alien words during his trip to their planet, and now he wrote them in alien blood on the walls of destroyed buildings. Simple phrases that would stick in alien minds like poison. Humans remember everything. One becomes many. Your death feeds our strength. The words were not just threats. They were designed to make aliens think about things their minds could not handle. The effect was immediate and frightening. Alien soldiers who found these messages started acting strange. Some refused to enter buildings where humans had been. Others reported seeing more human enemies than were actually there. Medical centers filled up with aliens suffering from stress and fear-related illnesses. The psychological pressure was breaking down alien resistance faster than any military attack. Jake also started using hit-and-run tactics that made no logical sense to alien minds. He would attack a target and then attack the same target again an hour later when reinforcements arrived. He would leave traps that did not kill but only wounded aliens in painful ways. He would destroy things that had no military value just to show that nowhere was safe from human revenge. General Zakhtar tried to counter the psychological attacks by telling his soldiers that fear was weakness and weakness would be punished. But the more he pushed his troops, the more they broke under pressure. Alien soldiers started making basic mistakes like firing at shadows and calling for backup when they heard strange noises. Some units refused direct orders and demanded to be transferred away from the human hunting zones. Jake discovered that he could multiply his effect by making the aliens think there were more humans than just him. He would leave equipment from his dead teammates at attack sites. He would set up false radio transmissions that suggested other human soldiers were coordinating attacks. He even used alien voice equipment to broadcast fake messages claiming that human reinforcements were landing on other parts of the planet. The aliens fell for every trick because they could not understand how one human mind could be so devious and creative. Their hive mind made them excellent at following complex plans, but terrible at adapting when those plans failed. Jake was like a virus in their mental network, spreading confusion and doubt wherever he went. By the second night of Fighting Jake had the aliens so scared that they were shooting at each other in the dark. Patrol units would open fire on other patrol units because they thought every shadow might hide a human enemy. Command posts stopped sending out small groups and began moving their soldiers in large formations that were easy for Jake to avoid. Or ambush. Jake used the chaos to get closer to his main target. While thousands of alien soldiers searched the outer city for him, he was moving through drainage tunnels toward the central tower. The aliens had sensors watching every street and building, but they had not thought to guard their underground infrastructure. Very well, the central tower was even more heavily defended than Jake had expected. Energy barriers surrounded the entire building. Guard posts covered every approach route. Flying vehicles moved in constant circles overhead watching for any sign of human activity. Getting inside would require more than just stealth and fighting skills. It would take a plan so crazy that the aliens would never see it coming. Jake found a maintenance tunnel that led under the tower foundation. The tunnel was too small for alien soldiers, but just right for a human in light armor. Getting to the tunnel entrance would mean crossing 200 meters of open ground covered by automatic weapons and sensors. Once inside the tunnel, he would have to crawl for over a mile through spaces barely wide enough for his body. If the aliens discovered him in the tunnel, he would be trapped with no way to escape. But Jake had learned something important about alien psychology during his attacks. They expected him to do the smart thing and attack from the outside where he could retreat if necessary. They would never imagine that a human would trap himself underground just to get closer to his target. Their logical minds could not comprehend that level of tactical insanity. Jake prepared his gear for the underground approach. He stripped off everything except his basic armor and weapons. The nuclear bomb was small enough to carry, but he would have to arm it manually once he reached the target area. If anything went wrong in the tunnel, he would die without completing his mission. But if he succeeded, the alien communication network would be destroyed and Earth would be safe. Jake looked up at the alien tower rising into the dark sky above him. Somewhere inside that building was the quantum communication array that could call for alien reinforcements from across the galaxy. In a few hours, he would either destroy that array or die trying. The odds were still terrible, but Jake had been improving those odds with every alien soldier he killed and every moment of fear he created in alien minds. Jake crawled into the maintenance tunnel and began the longest journey of his life. Behind him, the alien city burned with the fires he had started. Ahead of him lay the most dangerous part of his mission. But Jake was no longer just fighting for his own survival. He had become something much more dangerous than one human soldier. He had become the thing that aliens would fear in the dark for generations to come. The maintenance tunnel was a nightmare of sharp metal edges and poisonous alien gases that made Jake's eyes water and his throat burn. He crawled through the darkness for what felt like hours, dragging his rifle and the nuclear bomb behind him. Every few minutes he had to stop and listen for alien voices or footsteps above his head. If they discovered the tunnel entrance, he would be trapped like a rat in a pipe with nowhere to run. Jake's armor scraped against the tunnel walls, making small noises that sounded huge in the confined space. His breathing echoed off the metal surfaces, and he worried that alien sensors might detect the sound. Sweat poured down his face inside his helmet as the temperature rose from alien heating systems. The tunnel was never meant for humans, and every meter was a struggle against pain and exhaustion. After 2 hours of crawling, Jake reached a junction where several tunnels met in a larger chamber. He could hear alien voices somewhere above him, speaking in their clicking language. Through a metal grate, he could see the boots of guards walking back and forth. Jake was now directly under the central tower, and the quantum communication array was somewhere in the floors above his head. Jake studied the blueprints he had memorized during his mission briefing. The communication equipment was located 15 floors up in a heavily shielded chamber at the heart of the tower. Getting there would mean leaving the tunnel and fighting his way through hundreds of alien soldiers. Even if he made it to the target room, he would still have to plant his bomb and escape before it exploded. The chances of success were almost zero, but Jake had to try. Jake found a ventilation shaft that led upward into the tower. The shaft was even smaller than the tunnel, and climbing it would be like going up the inside of a narrow chimney. His armor would barely fit, and if he got stuck halfway up, he would die a slow death by suffocation. But it was the only way to reach his target without fighting through the main entrances, where thousands of aliens waited for him. Jake left most of his gear in the tunnel and took only his sidearm, some explosives, and the nuclear bomb. Every ounce of weight would make the climb harder, and he needed to move as fast as possible. The bomb had a timer that he could set for anywhere from 1 minute to 1 hour. Once he armed it, there would be no way to stop the explosion. The climb up the ventilation shaft was the hardest thing Jake had ever done. His muscles screamed with pain as he pulled himself up, using only his arms and legs pressed against the walls. The shaft was completely dark, and he had to feel his way up by touch. Several times he almost fell when his grip slipped on the smooth metal surfaces. The alien air recycling system filled the shaft with strange smells and toxic vapors that made him dizzy. After an hour of climbing, Jake reached a grate that opened into a corridor on the 10th floor of the tower. Through the metal slats, he could see alien technicians working at computer terminals. They were monitoring the search for him in the city below and had no idea that their enemy was watching them from just a few feet away. Jake waited until the corridor was empty and then carefully removed the grate. Jake crawled out of the ventilation shaft and found himself in the heart of alien military operations. Computer screens showed the positions of every search team in the city. Radio communications crackled with reports from units that had found nothing but destruction and fear. Jake could see that the aliens were pulling more troops from their outer defenses to search for him. That would make it easier for human reinforcements to land when they finally arrived, but Jake could not count on reinforcements reaching him. In time, he had to complete his mission alone and hope that his sacrifice would give Earth the time it needed to prepare for war. Jake moved through the tower corridors, like a ghost staying in the shadows and avoiding the main hallways where alien soldiers patrolled in large groups. The quantum communication array was located behind multiple layers of security, including energy barriers, armed guards, and automated defense systems. Jake used his remaining explosives to create diversions that drew guards away from their posts. He crawled through more ventilation shafts to bypass the energy barriers. He disabled security cameras by shooting out their lenses with his silenced pistol. Finally, Jake reached the communication chamber and saw his target. The quantum array was a massive device that filled most of the room with crystalline structures and pulsing energy conduits. This machine could send messages instantly, across thousands of light years, to every alien world in their empire. If it called for reinforcements, Earth would face an invasion fleet of millions of ships. Jake planted his nuclear bomb at the base of the main transmission unit and set the timer for 30 minutes. That would give him enough time to try to escape, but not enough time for the aliens to find and disarm the device. The bomb was powerful enough to destroy the entire tower and everything within a mile radius. There would be no surviving the explosion if he was still in the building when it went off. Alarms started screaming throughout the tower as alien security systems detected Jake's presence in the communication chamber. Emergency lights flashed red, and blast doors began sealing off sections of the building. Jake ran for the nearest stairwell as the sound of alien boots echoed through the corridors. Hundreds of soldiers were converging on his position, and he had less than 30 minutes to escape. Jake fought his way down the tower stairs, shooting alien soldiers who tried to block his path. His ammunition was running low, and he was taking hits from enemy weapons that burned through his armor. Blood ran down his arms and legs, but he kept moving toward the lower levels. Behind him, he could hear General Zektar shouting orders to his troops in the alien language. With 10 minutes left on the timer, Jake reached the ground floor of the tower. Thousands of alien soldiers surrounded the building, and every exit was blocked by heavy weapons. There was no way out and no way to survive what was coming. But Jake had completed his mission, and that was all that mattered. The quantum communication array would be destroyed, and Earth would be safe. Jake found a window that looked out over the alien city and thought about his sister Amy one more time. She would never know that her brother had saved the world, but that was okay. Heroes did not fight for glory or recognition. They fought because someone had to and because the people they loved deserved to live in peace. Jake stood at the window watching thousands of alien soldiers surround the tower as his bomb counted down the final minutes. He had 5 minutes left to live and 40 million enemies who wanted to kill him before he could complete his mission. But Jake was not afraid anymore. He had done what he came here to do, and soon the quantum communication array would be nothing but radioactive dust. General Zektar's voice echoed through speakers in the building as he spoke to Jake in broken human language. Human soldier Jake Morrison, we know you are in this tower. You have fought well, but now you are trapped with no escape. Surrender, and we will give you a quick death instead of letting you burn in your own nuclear fire. Jake picked up a communication device from a dead alien soldier and spoke back to the general. Zektar, you made one big mistake when you decided to fight humanity. You thought that being outnumbered was a problem for us? But humans have been fighting impossible odds for thousands of years, and we always find a way to win. The alien general was quiet for a moment before responding. You are one human against 40 million Vorthak warriors. Even if your bomb destroys this tower, we will rebuild it and continue our war against your species. Your sacrifice will change nothing. Jake smiled as he looked out at the alien city burning in dozens of places where he had planted explosives during his mission. You still don't understand, do you, General? I'm not just one human anymore. I'm the proof that humans can't be stopped no matter what odds we face. Every alien who sees this city burning will remember that one human soldier did all this damage. That memory will spread fear through your empire faster than your ships can travel. Through the window, Jake could see alien civilians fleeing the city as news of his attacks spread through their population. The mighty Vorthak Empire that had conquered dozens of worlds was running scared from one human with a rifle and some bombs. Their psychological weakness was becoming apparent to everyone, including their own people. Jake had 3 minutes left on his timer when he decided to make his final stand. Instead of hiding and waiting for the bomb to explode, he was going to show these aliens what human courage really meant. Jake grabbed his rifle and walked toward the main entrance of the tower where General Zektar was waiting with his personal guard. The tower lobby was filled with alien soldiers, but they moved aside as Jake appeared at the top of the main staircase. He walked down the steps slowly with his rifle ready and his head held high. The aliens could have shot him down instantly, but they seemed frozen by the sight of their enemy finally revealing himself. Even General Zektar stood motionless as Jake approached. Here I am, Zektar, Jake said as he reached the bottom of the stairs. One human against your entire army. You want to kill me so badly, then come and try. But know that in 2 minutes, this entire tower and everyone in it will be vaporized by human technology. You can kill me, but you can't stop what's coming. General Zektar drew his energy sword and advanced toward Jake. You have caused much death and destruction, human, but your mission has failed. Our communication array has backup systems on other worlds. Your Earth will still burn under Vorthak fire. Jake raised his rifle and fired at the alien general. The bullet struck Zektar in the chest and knocked him backward, but his armor absorbed most of the damage. Other alien soldiers started shooting at Jake, who rolled behind a concrete pillar as energy bolts scorched the air around him. The final battle had begun with 60 seconds left on the nuclear timer. Jake fought like a man possessed, firing his last ammunition at every alien target he could see. His armor was burning from multiple hits, but he kept moving and shooting until his rifle clicked empty. Then he drew his sidearm and continued fighting as alien soldiers closed in from all directions. Blood covered his face and his left arm hung useless at his side, but Jake would not give up. With 30 seconds left on the timer, Jake found himself face to face with General Zektar again. The alien commander was wounded, but still dangerous. With his energy sword raised high, "You have lost, human. Your bomb will kill you along with us. What kind of victory is that?" Jake pulled the detonator for his nuclear bomb from his belt and held it up for the general to see. "The kind of victory that matters most, General. The kind that saves innocent people from monsters like you. My sister Amy will never have to fear alien ships in Earth's sky because of what happens here today. Jake pressed the detonator button and smiled as the timer jumped from 20 seconds to 0. One human against the planet Zektar. Guess who won? The nuclear explosion lit up the alien sky like a new sun being born. The tower and everything within 2 miles disappeared in a ball of white-hot plasma that could be seen from orbit. When the light faded, there was only a smoking crater where the Vorthic Communication Center had stood for 1,000 years. Jake Morrison died in that explosion, but his mission lived on. Without their quantum array, the aliens could not call for reinforcements from their homeworlds. Human fleets arrived days later to find alien resistance collapsing as news of one Marine's victory spread panic through their ranks. The Vorthic Empire that had seemed invincible was broken by the actions of a single human who refused to accept defeat years later. When human children learned about the war against the aliens, they always asked the same question: how did one man defeat 40 million enemies? The answer was simple but profound. Jake Morrison had something the aliens could never understand or defeat. He had the indomitable human spirit that turns ordinary people into legends when everything they love is threatened. The aliens had superior numbers, better weapons, and home field advantage. But they had never faced an enemy who would rather die than surrender. They had never fought against someone who measured victory not by personal survival, but by the safety of people he would never see again. They thought they were fighting one human soldier, but they were really fighting the entire human race, concentrated into one determined Marine, who carried the hopes of his species into battle. The Vorthok learned too late that when you corner a human with nothing left to lose, you haven't trapped them. You have created something far more dangerous than any army. You have created a force of nature that will not stop until either it wins or dies trying. Jake Morrison proved that sometimes the difference between victory and defeat comes down to one person willing to pay any price to protect the people they love.